Okay. Hello, everyone. This is another episode of Conversations with Rob. Please like and subscribe and comment, and also share these interviews because we have some great people on that are really involved in different industries that really are trying to help people and have amazing stories. This is Elke Scholz, and with all the the anxiety going on right now, me and her are going to talk and have a little conversation right now about the anxiety with all the illness going around as far as the coronavirus. What do they do? The abbreviation? It's COV-19 or something.
COVID or something, yeah.
COVID-19. But anyways,
Right.
We're going to get into the thick of things. So Elke, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob, for doing this. It's important work.
I agree. So let's talk about this. We were talking before we went on the air about, this illness. And if you keep watching the news, I was telling you, Elke, that with my heart started to I was not going to take a heart attack, but I started to feel like weird feelings in my stomach and my heart because I kept watching consistently this news. And it was just saying people were dying, stay inside. We're in Florida where I'm broadcasting, and we got Disney closing, the resorts, everything's closing, restaurants, New York City schools, Florida schools. So it's really scary. What is your take on how we handle this? Should we not watch the news, or what should we do?
Well, it's interesting that you said that. And you know what? A long time ago, actually, when I was in my 20s, I was in the news a lot because I was in politics. And so when I would read the paper or listen to the radio, it was all twisted. And so I lost a lot of faith in the news. And I know that it wasn't a popular opinion. However, I have not missed anything by not reading. I do read my local paper because I want to know what's going on in my small little town in Bracebridge, Ontario. And I do always find out what I need to find out. And so I find the same, Rob, for you. I was noticing that I was walking down grocery stores. I could hear jingles in my head for the different advertising. And I also would get upset watching the news, and I went, you know what? I don't need this. This isn't what I need. And I'm a good person. I want to give. I want to help people. And so one of the things I did, I took a drastic measure, and I stopped listening to commercial TV, commercial radio, and newspaper. And I know that's harsh because we do need our media and our good reporters, and I emphasize good reporters. Yeah. Though, I was in Toronto for about 15 minutes. We listened to the news at my friend's house for about 15 minutes, and it took me 3 days to process that. I think they set an alarm in people, and we're not doing all the research. And I would just beg for people to take a break on the news. If you need to listen, maybe limit yourself to 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. If you need to update, and really take some time to disengage. And when you disengage, connect with people, connect with nature. And the birds, I was looking at the birds and the buds coming out I live up in Muskoka, so spring is coming. The buds they're coming out on the trees, the birds are singing, and we really need to be back in nature, center ourselves. Anyway, sorry, you have touched a nerve, so I don't mean to keep going, but I've got lots of strategies.
So first of all, Elke, what is going on in Canada? I mean, I saw because I'm a news guy, Justin Trudeau's wife got the coronavirus. We've seen lots of celebrities and people in this country have got it, regular people too, of course. So what is going on as far as the epidemic in Canada? Is it as bad as Italy or the US, or what are you seeing over there?
We're not even close. And Rob, I know they have I was just talking to a friend just before you and I were speaking, and they have this kind of stat card that people are watching online. And sure, there are cases that are getting revealed, but there are people that have already contracted it, and the numbers are way low. We're still really low in numbers. It's not like Europe. It's not like Italy. However, even in my little town here, and there is no cases here at the moment.
Mhm.
I think the case, there is one case. I want to emphasize the number one, ONE, and I get so angry, but there's one case in Barrie, which is over an hour away.
Mhm.
And, they're isolating, and I know there's people that think they're sick, they're isolating. But you know what? That's one case. But our town, you asked what's happening here. We're shut down. But I want to say something. International trading is still happening. The liquor store is still open, but they've shut our library. They've shut restaurants. They've shut music, entertainment. They've shut our sportsplex and our schools as well. And I sit here and I think it's very lopsided. If we still have international trading, like the doors are open internationally, commercial flights are still going. I mean, I think we can take caution measures, though there are measures that are common sense, which we can talk about. So that's kind of what's happening up here. I'm a little angry about it, but you know what I'm doing? Well, and you and we can talk about some of the solutions and how we can cope.
Right. I do want to get into that as far as coping with this. We talked about, and I should say you spoke about turning off the TV. Besides that, because of, whether you turn off the TV or not, you can't really do much. They shut down, you can go to the grocery store, but over here where I'm at, they've shut down all the major attractions. If you go into a restaurant, you're scared if somebody breathes on you wrong, that they could get you sick, and you.
Oh, I know. They've got everybody nervous.
Right. So what can we do to kind of, get rid of that anxiety, or at least lower it down to some sort of, capable level to get through the days ahead?
Absolutely. And let's make a list for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we can do, like we said, is limit the media exposure. Absolutely. I think, that is a big one, because I know even just going downtown and coming back home, you get wound up. So, really be paying attention to that kind of hype and that vibration that we're getting. Though here's some practical things, and they're things that are common sense things, and they're things that I think when we take action, like anxiety is there for a reason. It's kind of a signal to say, hey, pay attention. So paying attention is, wash your hands. And people, it's interesting, they just don't wash their hands enough. It sounds super simple. However, you know what? Like 20 seconds, sing a little song, wash your hands really well. And that is already huge. We touch money. You basically have touched hundreds and hundreds of people by touching money. So, you've got to wash your hands. Wash hands, wash hands, wash hands. Put that on the list multiple times. And then, of course, you don't want to be touching your face. And we do it all the time. And, we rub our eyes or we put things in our mouth. Again, wash your hands before you do any of that, and teach your kids to do the same thing. And this is something that we can practice, because it's not just this flu. There's many contagious things out there. They're just making this into some kind of super sport thing, and certainly honing in on it. So the other thing we can do, and this is practical as well, and people have been doing this for hundreds of years, this is not new, is use some good essential oils and some, and what I mean is you don't take it, I mean just for your skin, or even breathing in things like lavender, patchouli, frankincense. And I'm not endorsing any companies, but there's a real, like cloves and cinnamon were used on the pirate ship to keep them healthy. This is hundreds of years ago. We can still use these things. The French actually burned burger lamps. And again, I'm not promoting any of this stuff, but it's out there. And they would burn these lamps, and it's an alcohol mixture, but what it does is it disinfects the air. And you can do that in your home. I've been doing it for years before it was even popular. And actually probably for over 30 years, I've been using these remedies. And and I'm super healthy. I don't get what everybody else gets, and people that do practice this practicality is a way. And you know, the other thing is definitely our eating habits. I think we can certainly, like, we want to build up who we are. So, you know, if you're nervous or weak or sick or compromised in any way, definitely start looking at how you can build yourself up. I mean, this is our castle here. This is it. This is all we've got. So make it work. You know, be in prime shape. Get out there, exercise. And then the other thing is connection. Yeah. We need to connect as people. So isolating and social media is not an answer. If you're worried, I'm sure you know people that are healthy and, you know, you have taken precautions, then get together, have a potluck, or especially while this is all going on, is connect and, you know, do it with friends and family. However, if you're alone, I know up here, they've shut down all our clubs and hobby things. And you know what? That's not an answer. So I'm going to open up my home. I'm going to do some things to get people together, because this isolation is not going to be good for people.
Agreed. And
the other thing that we can do is also take up a hobby. So if there's something that you've wanted to learn or do, right now this winter I learned how to knit socks. So I guess I'm making more socks. And, you know, some of my friends have talked about that they're learning how to do podcasts. And so they're taking this as an opportunity. So if there's things you wanted to learn, well, we can't get into our library, so we can't access those books, but we can certainly access books other ways. But if there's something you wanted to read or learn, I mean, there's another thing you can do too. So we really need to be creative. We've got to expand ourselves. And you know what? When I start thinking that way, because I have anxiety myself, and I had a couple days, you know, I had a big event canceled. So yes, it's affected me. I've had all my clubs and all my activities canceled. And I went, okay, you know what? I'm into solution mode. So today's a good day. I'm glad I'm speaking to you. And I'm encouraging my friends to connect and stay connected with each other, and, you know, to be as healthy as we can. And I think, you know, doing this podcast is so timely, and we've got to get it out there. And I just hope that some of these strategies will help people. So I hope that's a good list.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say Elke Scholz here on Fire, Breathe, and Rob, also formerly known as Conversations with Rob. Thanks for coming on. And I know the viewers are really going to enjoy this once they get it and they hear it later on today. So thanks so much for coming on. Let's talk more about, because you are a registered psychotherapist, and I want to talk more about anxiety in general. Obviously, you've wrote an award-winning book called Loving Your Life and the Anxiety Warriors series.
3 books.
Can you talk about those books a little bit? And then I just want to move on to a little bit of my own personal questions about anxiety that I've heard from people in general.
Absolutely. So the books, I actually, I have them right here. Okay, hang on. And I'll put it in the video. There we go. Yeah. There. So that's the Loving Your Life book. I wrote that. It came out in 2004, and it's actually in its 3rd edition. And it's coming back to who you are on a holistic level. So the book is written where you don't have to read it cover to cover. It has over 40 exercises in it. And the exercises are, there's levels. So you can do one exercise, or you can take it and then do another one, and build on that. And it's definitely how to come back to who you are time-wise, also meditation and creativity-wise. So, you don't need expensive materials. The way I wrote it was pencils, crayons, pastels. You can use very, very simple materials and paper. And if you want to make it fancy, you can. Again, with some of the sound exercises, you don't need instruments, but you can make up instruments. You know, a glass, like things like that, or a drum, right? You can pound on a table. But so anyways, so that book, I'm very proud of it. It's one of the publishers said it's a walker. It's one that's going to be around for a long time. And a lot of people have read it and reread it. I don't know if that's helpful, but actually what I'd like to say is you can check the website or Amazon and you can flip through the pages. And my website, I've put the table of contents on there, a chapter and introduction, just to give you a feel of what the book is like if you like it. And I know Amazon does the same as well. So
Great.
that's good.
Right. Oh, no, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to talk about anxiety in general.
Yep.
With such a stressful world, you know, I know Canada has different issues as far as than in the United States, but some of the issues that I hear from people over here, and I'm sure people are suffering the same in Canada as they are over here. In this country, minimum wage jobs, everything is going up. The pay isn't going up for regular working people in this country. And that was one of the reasons why a lot of our viewers tell us that they believe that Trump got elected in this country because they wanted something different. Now, whether they like him or not, that's another story. But you know, what do you think about that? A lot of this anxiety is not really, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, not really built up by the person. It's more of all these things consistently happening where people are worried about affording, either they're going to buy food for their kids or pay car insurance to get the kids to school. So all these issues, do you believe that it's the person that's building up this anxiety, or it's all these issues?
Anxiety comes from about 11 different places. And the ones that you're mentioning, it's called reality. And you're right. And you know what, Rob? You know, Canada, I've actually been on some international radio interviews, and really we are suffering too. Too many people are hungry. Too many people and parents are working 3-4 jobs just to make ends meet. This thing that's happening right now, you know, people are showing up at work sick because if they stay home, they're not getting paid and they can't afford not to be paid. And I feel so much for them. It just really breaks my heart at the fallout. And and mental health, we don't have the resources. There's a lot of lip service that's going around. There's still a lot of falling through the cracks. So this isn't about people making it up. And I think there's things we can do to minimize it. Will it totally go away? No. Some of it is reality. And what you're talking about is Maslow's hierarchy. It's that triangle. And on the bottom is the basic needs. And he did a survey, I guess it was in the 1955. And what panics people is when their livelihood, their shelter, their food, their warmth gets challenged. And all of us, even psychotherapists like myself, we get thrown right into huge anxiety because it means our limbic brain is firing in the back of our heads, and it means a threat of death. So that's why the anxiety is so rampant. So that reality is real. And so it's something that, we've, I don't know what all the answers are, but I'm certainly willing to answer some questions. So.
Sure. Thank you for that. Elke Scholz here on Fire Breathing Rob, Conversations with Rob. Please subscribe to this podcast, like, and also comment and share. Elke Scholz, I want to talk about this. You said that you were in politics. I did not know that. In America, we're fighting right now, and as the 2020 election goes on a lot of the anxiety with that, with the coronavirus.
Okay.
I'm sorry. It's such a tough word to say, but a lot of anxiety with that. But I want to talk about this. Since you said you were in politics, you are in Ontario, which is in Canada. And I want to talk about this. 41% of Americans in the last election, which was in 2018 for the midterm elections, said their top issue was healthcare in America. We see all over America, people are dying, the lack of affordable healthcare. Senator Bernie Sanders, who's running for president in Vermont, talks about this quite often, as do a lot of other politicians. My question to you is, as living in Canada and being a citizen of the country, we hear a lot about the Canadian system. People praise it, and people also say that it's a joke of a system that you have to wait. As somebody that's been in politics such as yourself and knows the system probably a lot better than somebody like me or some of these commentators on American TV, that's for damn sure. What is the story with the Canadian healthcare system? Are you happy with it, or would you rather be in a healthcare system such as America?
Well, one, I should clarify, my political days was, let me see, maybe 30 years ago,
That's all right.
maybe further away. And the healthcare system, you know what? It's hot and cold. So, I've had great experiences, and I've had some not good experiences. And that's what we hear. We hear people rave about, being treated really, really well and quickly. And then we hear about the other stories. And I think, it comes down to, do we have the ability for great healthcare? Yes, we do. I think, I want to, again, encourage people, you are the master of this castle. And this is what we live in. Our bodies this is all we have that we know that we have. We need to advocate for ourselves. We need to be out there, and if you have a healthcare worker that's not, let me put it back the other way. And I've talked to clients too, where something's niggling them, they know something's wrong, and their healthcare provider is either sloughing them off or not paying attention or not finding the diagnosis. What I want to encourage people is, you need to fight for yourself. You need to defend yourself. You need to go out there and advocate for yourself or your children, or perhaps your elderly parents that can't do it for themselves. We need to be our own advocate. And you know what? You're going to get the care, and you're going to find solutions. I just want to say, please be encouraged. Don't give up. Keep moving. You'll find the person to help you with it. And there's a reason you're anxious. There's a reason you've got these niggles. You've got to trust your guts.
Sorry. Let me just
It's okay.
say
That's good.
Let me just say this, though. From what I hear from people that live in, it's not near you, but in Vermont, that go, over the border to, Canada, Montreal, all in that area too, is they say we see a lot of people going over the border for insulin, that it's 3 times more in America than it is in Canada. We also look at the affordability issue, where everybody in Canada, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this because I don't have all the answers, everybody in Canada is covered, whereas everybody in America isn't covered. And even if they are covered, they have to pay, deductibles, premiums, where in Canada, it just goes through the tax system. Is that all correct?
Yes and no, though we do, you're right. As we are lucky that way. If I go into a hospital, I do get care eventually. They do triage it. The other thing that happens is we do have a tiered system, because some people do pay into extended healthcare insurance, so then they get the premium healthcare. And yes, so it's there. There's also a tiered system, though you're right, no one is turned away. However, perhaps the priorities are debatable. And I've just heard stuff from people and their experiences, so I can only go with that. Though I think you're right, everybody does get health care. And we need to, I think, look at both systems, And now, actually, they've cut a lot of things that our OHIP doesn't cover. And if it's not covered, then you do have to pay. So that has been changing, changes regularly about things that aren't covered now. So that's changing. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that information. And we're gonna cut this into segments, because I wanted to make sure, as somebody from that area of the world, I want to make sure that, because we get that all the time in this country, and it's nice to get a little bit of a firsthand account on what's going on. So thank you for that. I do want to move on to a couple more subjects before we end the interview and go back to the anxiety issue. A lot of these healthcare companies push pills on people for anxiety. I had dated a girl a couple years back, and she was taking quite a few different pills for anxiety. That scares me a little bit because, you know, we talk about addictions. We see in this country that we've had opioid crises where people are basically overdosing. Now, I'm not saying, you know, you're going to overdose on anxiety pills, but you could, you know, do that hypothetically. You could overdose on anything. What is your take on people taking medication for anxiety? Does it depend on the individual? Do you think that, you know, talking to somebody as far as a counselor would be a better objective for majority of people?
Well, you know, Rob, it's interesting because my website says drug-free therapy
Right. Okay.
as an option. So, however, I'm not against medication per se, but this is where I come back to people, please do your research. And is your doctor, and if they're just a family doctor, and I'm not saying just in a negative way, I'm just saying in a limited way, usually they're not qualified to do an assessment. So I've had people come into my practice and they've been diagnosed, quotation marks, and I'm going, by whom? And they go, well, I told the doctor I had anxiety, so he's giving me a prescription. And I just go, really? So here's the thing is, you know, so I just go back into, I'm not a doctor. However, again, I ask that person, I go, is that something you want to do? And then usually they say no, because that's why they're in my office. Yeah. And that's why I produced the books too, because you know what? There's so many accessible, easy, simple things we can do to lower anxiety. And let's do those things first before we resort to medication. And is medication valuable? Yes, it is. Is it? But let's look at it as temporary. Let's look at it as a last resort. You know, can we lower anxiety with some simple things? I believe so. That's what I'm passionate about. That's why I do public talks and talks like this with you, and happy to share those. Absolutely.
Right. Let me ask you this. A lot of people get confused that with having anxiety and being depressed. Do you find that a lot with different people?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot, actually, Rob, because so anxiety is a very strange word. You know, people say they don't have anxiety. They're lying. It's part of our humanness to have it. And anxiety itself is not a bad thing. So it's anticipatory. It's our guts. It's something saying, hey, pay attention. That's not a bad thing. So then is it stress? You know, is that butterfly in your stomach, or migraines? Is that stress? So people mix up stress and anxiety, and you've got to know that depression and anxiety usually go together. If people have depression, they have anxiety. If they have anxiety, they usually have depression. So it gets mixed up in one big lovely soup. So yeah, they do. And I think you've got to look at what's going on in yourself. And like I said, there's 11 things where anxiety comes from. And most of those we have control over, and most we can change. So we can actually do that. And it doesn't have to cost money. It doesn't have to. So
let me ask you this. To control anxiety, we hear a lot of people talking about exercise, going to do a yoga class, and also, you know, finding something, as we talked about, you know, going through this crisis as a hobby. Do you believe that exercise and hobbies take your mind off? You know, obviously they do, but I guess control the anxiety better?
Yeah, well, one thing with exercise, and we produce those endorphins. And, you know, we get out in the fresh air, go for a walk, and already you feel better. Everybody feels better. There's lots of research on that. Absolutely. And as for a hobby, pardon me, something that you enjoy, we need that space. And somebody said to me that knitting was like meditation for her. And I thought about that and I thought, yeah, that's kind of what I get out of it too. Now, mind you, there's simple patterns. But anyways, my point is when we do have something that interests us, it takes our mind off of those worries. And some of those worries, like you said, that are real life. So jobs, money, insurance, college, feeding, food, different things like that. So, yeah, sometimes we need to take a brain vacation, and that's what I've called it. And it doesn't have to be for hours and hours. We just need that little break, and then it kind of fills our cup, and then we're ready to go again to tackle what we need to address.
Last question, and we definitely have to have you on again because you have a lot of
I'd love to.
valuable information. Elke Scholz here on Fire Breathing Rob, Conversations with Rob. Please subscribe. Last question. You talked quite a few times throughout this interview about 11 things to control anxiety. What were those things that you would suggest for people to do to control their anxiety issues?
Well, what I was saying is that comes from 11 places.
Okay,
So if we can control, and I'm going to read it so I don't miss one, but
sure.
so substances, chemical and otherwise, as simple as water, as complicated as alcohol, physiological, which we talked about, exercise, reality, you and I talked about. There's overstimulation. We talked a little bit about media and, of course, social media. There's a whole little discussion on that. Culture and social beliefs, self-doubt, perfectionism, negative thinking, highly sensitive, memories. And the last one is traumas. So, so those are 11 layers of anxiety. And you know what? We could do a whole program on that. I'd love to share that with people, because when people have come to my talks and we talk about those, their anxiety gets lower, because 10 of those are things we can change, and we can change almost right away. So it's very easy. It's very approachable, simple to do. And that's what makes me so passionate about my books and getting that message out there. So
I agree. With all the stress and with, people's jobs and, employment issues, money issues, and all kinds of other, healthcare issues, people need to hear this, and, hopefully it'll help them relax. So thank you so much, Elke Scholz, for talking to the viewers today. And we'll definitely have you on again for sure. I wanted to ask you, before you go, can you tell the viewers where they can find more about you, and also the title of the books, where they can find it, please?
Absolutely. And I don't know in your programming if you'll have the spelling of my name on the program. So if they just Google myname.com, that will bring up my website, and that will have any access to my books. They're in audio as well as ebook. However, they can Google the books Anxiety Warrior. There's 2 volumes. They can Google Loving Your Life. They're on Amazon. They're on actually Ingram Spark and Smashwords as well, and a lot of popular audiobook libraries. So, it should come up. If you're having trouble, Google me and email me. Happy to answer and send you any links. So
ELKESHOLZ. So definitely go to that, and that's .com for more of Elke's work, and she can help you out. And she'll definitely come on the program again. A lot of information with her, and a lot more we need to talk about. But thanks so much for coming on, Elke Scholz. You were amazing, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation. I really appreciate the time. And stay safe,
Happy
too.
Yeah, you too, Rob. And let's, it's an opportunity. Let's look at all this as an opportunity and switch our thinking. And I think that will help too.